Microphone, do that first. Perfect. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to the team at Salisbury Council. Thank you to the councillors around us, and thank you to members of the public this evening. That is loud. Just going to push that away. It's still loud. Sorry, you can't hear me. Is this better? Perfect. Right, let's start with the agenda though. So, apologies for this evening.
Apologies received from Councillor Corbyn, and Councillor Rideout will be substituting for her.
Perfect. Thank you. And do we have any questions from the public?
No questions submitted.
Any councillor questions?
No councillor questions submitted.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So we move on to the minutes of the previous meeting. To the councillors in the room, everybody happy that those were a correct record of our last meeting? Yep. I'll take that as a yes. Perfect. I will sign those at the end. Thank you very much. Do we have any declarations of interest for this evening?
None received.
No. Perfect. Thank you. Any dispensations?
No dispensations were received or granted.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Well, we'll move quickly on then to my announcements. Nothing particular this evening, so thank you all again for coming. I will say thank you very much to the team involved in the activities, many of them over the Christmas period. I enjoyed what I took part in, as I heard many others did, so thank you for those. And thank you to a lovely turnout in front of me. As I say, for a committee, a rare treat, so no, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. And to reward that, we will move to your item on the agenda now. So I will end my announcements there and we'll move over to, I believe, item number 10 on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you everyone for joining us. Well, thank you for inviting us, Asa, mainly. Thank you. But we're here to talk to you about this year's massive educational campaign. Obviously, Play for Everyone is our big campaign, but educational, we feel that the Red Cord campaign is the best use of our time and time with communities. So I'm Kez, if you didn't know, and this is Anna. So over to Anna to start.
Red cords are a safety feature. When they are tied up, shortened, removed, or obstructed, they stop working as intended. What we see most often is not deliberate misuse, but a lack of understanding. People don't always know what red cords are for or why leaving them accessible matters.
That lack of awareness creates avoidable risk, particularly for disabled people, older residents and children. This campaign is not about enforcement or blame, but about education, providing clear, practical information so unsafe practice doesn't happen in the first place.
What we want to achieve is straightforward: to educate the public, to prevent unsafe practice, to engage the community, and to make red cord safety visible and understood.
To do that, the campaign uses 3 simple pieces of advertising material, each with a specific purpose. The first one is a poster designed specifically for Salisbury, which tells us what to do, what not to do, and why we should do it, and that it's quite a simple choice. And this would be a poster shared around the city to encourage people to untie or not tie up cords. What's the next one? This one is a little card that would be stuck to within a disabled toilet that literally has the Equality Act jargon on it to explain why this, not so much why, but the legal matter around tying it up. And the third one is literally just a little card that says, sorry, we found this tied up and this is what the problem is. Back over to you, Anna. Sorry, 2 seconds.
In terms of cost, the full, for the full Salisbury campaign can be delivered for under £500. That includes printing the cards and stickers, limited distribution, a small optional social media post boost, and basic contingencies. There is no ongoing cost once the campaign is delivered.
This represents a low-cost, high-impact approach. A small investment upfront reduces the likelihood of unsafe practice, complaints, or harm later on.
In summary, the Red Cord campaign is practical, affordable, and focused on education rather than enforcement.
With Salisbury City Council support, it can be delivered quickly in Salisbury and make a meaningful contribution to community safety and inclusion. Thank you for your time. We're happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Thank you.
As long as you don't direct them to me.
Okay, before we ask Anna any questions then.
No pressure.
So before we go to questions, Matt, did you want to add something at this stage? I'm just thinking if we get the discussion in and then we can pitch questions. Thank you.
So just to say that I've spoken to a local company who are happy to produce the marketing collateral for this at no cost. So shouldn't be a cost to you guys, shouldn't be a cost to us. And for that, we'll just put a little bit of advertising out for that company, and they're more than happy to take on the printing and the production of the stickers for the toilets.
Perfect. Thank you for that extra information. Great. Questions? Yes, Councillor Rideout.
Thank you. And I think it's a brilliant campaign. Could we widen it into schools? Because there are disabled facilities in schools, in unisex toilets. I'm only speaking from a school, obviously, that I know very well, but I'm sure lots of other schools as well. And as we're talking about education, get it out there too.
Yes, we are currently in communication with other councils countrywide, England-wide, to spread this further. Others do want involvement on it, including Wiltshire, but there was nothing until I come to you guys and we launched it with you guys as our main supporters. But we want this everywhere. The reason we have the issues with accessibility and inclusion now is because back when I was at school, you had the, excuse the way I put this, we all know I'm really bad with words, but the normal kids over here and the special kids over there, and you weren't allowed to mix, you didn't talk to each other. And that is why people like myself, Anna, and many of the audience behind us have the issues we have today, because there isn't the understanding. So if we can stop that, then absolutely.
No, I think that would be great. And I think if we could get into the send and inclusion teams in all the schools, that would be a really great starting point. And I'm talking from preschools.
Thank you. Just to clarify on that, because I know some of the schools are in the Wiltshire Council zone, but within Salisbury, was this just going to be businesses, or there are a few schools within the Salisbury Council zone? Who exactly are you targeting here? Is it just sort of businesses or?
Right now,
Yep.
you guys and the community around Salisbury.
Yep.
So whether that be kids, adults, 90-year-old Doris that you've all heard about, it doesn't matter. This starts with the first person who's willing to go into a toilet and go, actually, there's a problem.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hawking. Oh, sorry. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. I think, Matt approached a private company, which I thought was really positive and secured free design work, free production, which obviously if Diggs are happy with, I think would be fantastic. The kind of numbers you're talking about, actually, you can do thousands of these quite quickly and quite cheaply. So again, if councillors were minded to, we would be happy to work with Diggs to help on identifying some organisations where this could go to. But if we're talking about 2,000 or 3,000 of these stickers and posters being produced, then we could put this everywhere. Certainly the feeling from officers was this was a really fantastic campaign. The first thing we did was go downstairs into our accessibility toilet in the Guildhall to find one of the 2 cords tied up.
No, and I think that's where I was thinking, working with BID and others to get the businesses themselves as well to go and check their toilet, because yeah, we would, even the members of the public, but actually just them, they'd probably notice suddenly, oh, hang on, we found 50% of them aren't up to scratch. Perfect. Councillor Hawkins, sir.
Chair, thank you. Can you just pop the posters back up again a second? So that one there. 3, Kez, is that, where are you thinking of putting it? On the inside of the toilet door, for want of a better?
Inside of toilets, yes.
Is like on the door as you're going out? Is that a
Well,
stark
no,
enough?
you'd need that near the red cord, because what's the point in putting it on the door on your way out? Because no one's going to look behind them.
Because you said, and the next bit was just like a bit of, accessibility jargon and all the rest of it. What I'm saying is that's fine, but is there something, a shorter, sharper, starker message that maybe as you're leaving and going out of the door, you've got something in front of your face that says, have you tied the cord up? If
Then that
so,
would be the one
please
below.
untie it.
That
Yeah,
would be that one. If
but
it's tied, it's
But you look at that and you go, yeah, okay, fine. But if you had a much more in your face message, would that cut through a bit more? When who ties the cords up? Obviously the people who've been and used it, I would think.
cleaners, parents of young kids, because that 2-year-old little Freddie will
Yeah.
pull on that red cord.
Okay. I get it, and it's absolutely fine. I'm fine with it. It just maybe on the doors you're going out, possibly a starker message to say, please, if you've seen this or you've done this, please undo it. Something like that. Anyway.
I will also say I am no designer. That is Canva.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Matt did say that the poster design was
Yeah,
something
okay.
else.
I
I'm
think, Chair,
just like you.
just,
Sometimes I like a bit more in your face to get the message across.
so I think just to reiterate Kez's last comment, that's exactly why we're getting a design team involved. Tonight was about the principle, and the City Council being one of the first adopters of such a great campaign and a supporter of the campaign. We can support Diggs and work with professional designers now who can take this wonderful idea and help use some of their free expertise, so that exactly as you said, Councillor, things whack you in the face. They're the experts in terms of print media and stickers and things of that nature. Let's lean on their expertise.
So that's not the finished article then, that's just, we could do.
No.
Oh, right, okay. In that case, all right, okay, fair play. Yeah, okay, all right. No, fair enough. No, absolutely, no, I'm supportive of this completely.
No, thank you for that. Yeah, I was on a similar sort of, are we looking at that? Perfect. Sorry, Matt, he did say no. No, you're happy now? If not, okay. Councillor Bevan, shoot.
Great idea. I think I work in a hospital. So every time you go in a disabled toilet, they're always tied up. And I clean the toilet. My staff clean the toilets and we get them to undo them. But it's amazing why they get tied up. But it's definitely a good thing to start publicising, because, as you said, for 500 quid, if it saves someone that's had a fall, it's worth it. So, and if we're getting the design enhanced and printed for free, you're on a winner. You're definitely on a winner. And as we said, if we are the first council, get this right, it's going to go a long way.
Yeah.
So well done for sort of putting this forward. I'd completely support it all the way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Brown.
I think it's an excellent idea, and I just wanted to reiterate what everyone else is saying, that it's not so much about the design, it's about the communications experts, because, and I'm sure that's who you've identified to do it. It's not what it looks like, because, for example, having worked in behaviour change a lot, like Councillor Bevan is just saying, we need to understand why people are tying them up, and that's the message. Because if you just give them lots of information why it's a naughty thing, it won't make any difference. So I just hope the agency you found are communications and behaviour change experts, not just drawers, and then it'll be even better.
I'm sure we'll be able to articulate that message in a way that they understand.
Any more comments? Otherwise, okay. Yeah, just final thoughts from me. Again, I think it's a really good idea. It's one of those things where you think, how have we gone through our lives and we don't see these signs up there? There's so many, but yeah, crazy. So no, really, really good idea. And then a final thought, and maybe this is more to Salisbury Council, Matt, to think about, is can we track success so that maybe in a year's time or once it's launched, we come back and we go, were those posters successful? Because I think the important thing is not that we do the campaign, brilliant, but that we actually stop people tying the cords up. So maybe once we're up and running, we come back and we say, actually, they're still getting tied up. Let's think of what plan B is. So I think that's my position is let's stop people tying up cords. Let's go with this as plan A, and let's make sure we do what we need to make sure we get that final objective fulfilled. But we'll need to know of a way of how we track whether we have been successful with cords.
We have got a tracker set up that is monitoring toilets now and how often these amazing guys behind me go into them. And I literally get a WhatsApp about 20 times a day going, this toilet fine, this toilet tied up,
Perfect.
this toilet this.
So
they
yeah,
are
so no,
being
if we
tracked
could
and they
adopt
will
that and yeah,
continue.
sort of bring that on board to show progress, that's what we need. Brilliant. No, that's great. Any other final thoughts? Otherwise, yes.
Apologies, Chair. The original ask was for £500.
Yeah.
Now, I appreciate that now we have secured free art production, etc. Is there still an ask for finance?
Only to cover the distribution side of things from our side.
What figure would that look like?
£100 just to cover distribution throughout the city.
Chair, I'm more than happy to meet that from contingencies if the committee are happy.
Yeah. Happy to come contingencies.
Yep.
Does that mean we don't need to?
Happy for you to say £100 and approve the campaign.
Perfect. I would add, though not promising, of course, because we'd have to vote in the future. If you need more than £100, come back and.
Can I have that in writing?
Whoa.
No. Come back and ask. I'm not saying we'll say yes. But come back and ask because again, it would be silly that in this we suddenly sort of put a stop in there. Perfect. So I think as of this evening, then let's have a vote to say that we are happy for £100 to come out of contingency to support this initiative. All in favour? Oh, sorry. Does someone want to second me, please? Thank you. Now, if we vote. Perfect. Thank you very much. That's it. Well, no, thank you all for coming. Thank you for that. And yeah, brilliant.
That could be something that could. We can have our logo on the bottom. Lovely.
Perfect. So we will continue on with the meeting then, this time going back to item number 8, which I see Matt sitting down to give us the business team update. Thank you.
We'll just wait for the guys to finish and. Thanks, Chair, Vice Chair, Councillors, Chief Exec. So I thought the theme for the business team, I need to get some bifocals, because I have to keep doing this. I think the theme for the business team update this year was some facts and figures on 2025 and some ideas for 2026. I thought that'd be quite engaging and something to talk about. So we can go to the first slide, please. We're starting with our communications team this time, and we've just produced some highlights. So this may come as a little bit of a surprise, but we've had over 4.3 million views across our social media channels in 2025. And by all of our social media channels, that's X, Facebook, SCC, WhatsApp, YouTube, and all of the other favorites. Now, that doesn't mean 4.3 million people. What that means is that the 1.5 million people in 2024 may have looked 3 times instead of once. But what's important about that is that they're looking more than once, if that's the answer. So there appears to be more things that may attract you to the website if the audit comes from that core audience. Or there are more people looking for what is going on because we are posting more on our social media. So either way, I'm delighted with that increase in figures and are happy if that continues, that trend in 2026. Obviously, increased video output is driving stronger visibility, higher viewership from non-followers. So people who aren't necessarily been following us before are starting to. They're starting to get interested in what we're doing and how we're doing it, which is fantastic. Our major event campaign delivered our strongest follower growth, Salisbury Mellor, Charter Fair, Christmas on the Square. So people were very interested in that. We had a 34% increase in SEC website visits from 2024. The top traffic being an organic search, that's a general search, so people just seeing what's happening, what's going on. Direct searches, so they were looking for something specific, or kind of social stuff. So what's happening, what can I do, how can I enjoy myself? And obviously we introduced new social media templates in line with, and there is an example of that on there, more sort of phone-based, more sort of generic, so you would expect to see it. It's more compatible with what you're probably looking at most of the time, which is your mobile phone. Go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So what are we going to do this year? So we've already updated our What's On page just to make it easier to read, easier to navigate, and just kind of increase your, the usability, I guess. It's very important, particularly if we're looking to engage a younger audience, that our platforms and our visuals are pleasing for this audience, and they want to look at the website and they want to see what's going on. And you can see we've done simple things like take the corners off, soften the corners so it's slightly softer. It just gives it a slightly different look. It modernizes it slightly. We will be launching the SCC newsletter this year, early part of the new financial year. So very much looking forward to that. We'll also be looking to introduce advertising for hire, with a mind to having an online booking system for places like Guildhall and our other events. We just feel that we're possibly behind some of our competitors in that world. City Hall, Wiltshire Creative, Playhouse, all these other people that you can do that with, and you can't currently do that here. So we should be able to do that. And we'll officially launch our SEC TikTok presence this year. And we tried a takeover day last year where a TikTok Supremo came down and sort of took over one of our events and just posted some content. So we'll be looking to do a little bit more of that this year. So modernize and move forward. And this is a bit of a generic line, to be fair. Grow partnerships to deliver creator-led content. Okay. So who are people that we can partnership with? You may have heard of a gentleman called Spudman. He is an extremely famous jacket potato entrepreneur who has somewhere in the region of 4 million followers. We have reached out to him and we are currently talking to him about coming down here and doing something here at one of our events or something like that. So not only will he bring his delicious potatoes, he will also bring his followers and everything that entails. So we're very pleased to be able to start reaching out to people like this who other people are watching and other people are interested in. I think anything that brings eyes towards us is worth I was thinking, yes, exactly what it is. Thank you. So that's communications. I don't know if there's any questions about that, but it's just a general flavour.
Councillor Rideout.
All for moving forward with social media, but at the same time, we need to be careful. We know that, particularly if we are targeting a younger audience, all of the horrors that those young people are being exposed to.
Sure.
If we are going to do that, if we are going to get into realms of TikTok, we have a massive responsibility in all of our social medias. But if we are targeting young people, I think we need to be considering online safety and being part of the people who are using that platform to raise awareness for young people of the things that they need to be careful of. And all of our platforms, in fact, I think, we know that the fraud is horrific at the moment. We are heading towards the horrors of Valentine's Day, and all of that entails, should we be showing responsibility in raising people's awareness of how to keep themselves safe?
I agree.
Online.
100%.
Thank you.
Councillor Bevan.
The launch of the SCCE newsletter, how's that going to work?
So this was a request from, originally a request from the leader, that he felt that we needed an extra platform to be able to communicate with people other than what we're doing and what's on. Perhaps something a little bit more personalised, something that's a little bit more akin to what is Salisbury centric. I don't even know if that's a word, but you get what I mean. That matters a bit more to local people. So what we would do is we would probably do some kind of engagement, understand what it is that the locals want to hear about, want to find out about. We would also probably look to have in that newsletter things about improvements that we're making as a council, other things that are going on around the city, the dig scheme, that kind of stuff. So I guess it's a modern version of an old style, something that you get through your door, but first, ask first, find out the kind of things that people want to hear about, find out how much information you have that relates to what they want to hear about, fill the gaps where there isn't the case, put it together, share.
But how's it going to be shared? Is that going to be on the...
It will be online completely.
Just be on, so
Yeah,
it'll just be on the
completely
website
online.
as such?
It will be on the website only, yeah.
So
And
people
then
still
you'll just
have
be
to
able
go to the website to see it? It's
Absolutely.
not going to be distributed?
Yep.
Right, okay.
It won't be a paper. The plan is that it's not a paper newsletter.
No, that's fine. It's just more, how's it going to get out? Because if people don't look at the website...
I understand. We would use all and any opportunities we have through our markets, through our events, through other stuff, through our pitches, through our advertising, to say, look, this.
Just to clarify, would there be the option to sign up though as an email shot?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what...
Sorry.
It's basically just seeing how...
the question. Yeah. You can register to be a receiver of that.
That's the main thing,
That
is
newsletter.
how the public are going to get it. Okay.
Councillor Hocking.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm glad you explained what Grow Partnerships to Deliver Creator-Led Content that Resonates actually meant.
Yeah.
Because I've put, what does that actually mean?
Yes.
Because that's pure council jargon.
Not everybody's ready, Councillor.
TikTok. So are we doing TikTok because we can, or are we doing TikTok for another reason? What's the win look like on TikTok for us? How is that going to benefit our residents?
That's a good question. I think it benefits us in a number of ways. I think the ability to engage is hugely important, notwithstanding what Councillor Whitehouse said. The opportunity to look at mediums that perhaps we haven't really got into before, to see what the appetite is, what the audience is, how it might affect people turning up at events, what it might affect what people say, some of the stuff we get. So I think the win for me would be, what engagement would I get by, personally as a council, what engagement would we get by having those platforms for people to correspond with, by putting content out, by asking people how they feel and what they think, It's almost like kind of a virtual survey in a way. We'll always be able to get an opinion on the stuff that we're doing almost in real time. And that's kind of something that maybe we haven't had so much of. And also there's an audience here that I think we haven't been engaging with that maybe might allow us the opportunity to do so, provided we do so in a way that is safe.
Okay, I'd just be interested to see when this is launched, what the results will be and how you're gonna measure that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
come back in 12 months' time and say, oh, we did this and the end result was this and it benefited the city's residents like this.
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
And I think there's a second point to make is that, you know, with the greatest of respect, this is also about drawing tourism and visitors into the city. It's not just about somebody that lives next door. So I think, you know, part of that strategy to grow the Salisbury brand must, by definition and logically, involve things that are currently relevant. And TikTok and things like that are relevant, whether we have a personal view, either way. So let's try this stuff.
And advertising for hire, I think we mentioned, how's that going to work? What do you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, so what we would looking to introduce quite simply is almost like a rate card or a virtual media pack, which will exist on our website. So if you are interested in hiring Guildhall, if you're interested in the conference, if you're interested in this, a bit different to fees and charges. If you want to know how much something costs, we've got fees and charges pack. If you want some nice, pretty pictures, if you want to know what the advertising opportunities are on Southampton Road or Hudson's Field or wherever, or sponsorship opportunities or partnership opportunities, we don't necessarily advertise those too heavy or directly from our SCC website. They just exist if you look for them. So part of that evolution, for want of a better word, is to say, I want to put our commercial opportunities front and center. And I think the only way to do that is not only through the electronic system, is also to have it at markets, also to have it at events, also to do follow-ups after events and say, what did you think of that? Would you like to get involved? You know, this is what's happening. So I think the timing's right. I mean, this is something we could have done straight away. But in my opinion, I didn't think that we were ready yet. I think there were lots of other things to do before we launched the new and improved Salisbury City Council brand and marketing opportunities, if that makes sense.
Councillor Brown.
I think it's all very good, Matt. Social media is, of course, in the news every day in the last month, whether they're stopping under 16s in Australia, the same debate over here, and then every day different products, different companies falling out. X is out of fame, even with our own party, apparently. You know, and then and then today there was a news article about TikTok and abuse of staff. So they're kept discouraged from doing the safeguarding work they're meant to do. So do we have a policy? Should we be thinking about a policy or a criteria for deciding who we work with and who we don't? Because we might get ourselves an embarrassing situation. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think it's a fair shout. When I've introduced this in other places, one of the things that we introduced was an advertising and scrutiny group, if you like. So a group of people who not had overall control, but certainly were a sense check for audiences and campaigns that perhaps were not controversial, but needed just another question to be asked. Now, I'm not saying we have an advertising and scrutiny group here. What I'm saying is that, yes, absolutely, we should be mindful and careful of these platforms. But the reality is that they're not going anywhere. What they're doing is they're just changing into something else. And if we stay ahead of that, and if we look to what's coming next, so if we're always looking down the road rather than who's going to stab me in the back, I think we'll be better prepared rather than not doing anything at all. So yeah, I hear all of it. I think all the suggestions have been sensible. You know, we've got to be careful. We've got to do it with care. We've got to understand the audience. We've got to do it at the right time. We've got to find the right content. We've got to have the right conversations. But I'm fully cognizant of that. And any assistance that councillors or anybody else can give us, I'm happy to take.
Good, thanks.
Perfect. Any follow-ups? Otherwise, let's carry on to, so we're still going through the updates. Let's do more updates.
Thank you. So I did have an interesting conversation today about how long is a festoon. And apparently they're varying lengths. Depends on how wide the road is and if they go at an angle or if they're straight. I just wanted you to know I'd asked the question. Finances this year, our total expenditure year to date is 176 grand, some change, versus a budget of 194. So we're slightly underspent. So kind of pleased about that, considering that did include the unexpected toilet expenditure, which was about 33k. Our year-to-date income is slightly down, but we believe that we know why that is. We lost a large sponsor, sport partner last year in South Western Railway, and I think that was due to they went public ownership again, didn't they? And I think that probably just made them change their mind about that type of expenditure. We've re-engaged with them for this year early, so we're trying to get back in and get that cash. We will see a little bit more cash for the charter weekend coming in as well, and I'll touch on it a bit later, because we're introducing a fair for charter weekend on the 7th and 8th of February. Few highlights this year from our events. Over 4,000 people played games. 2,585 people visited the grotto. That was up on last year. Not by much, but it was up on last year. We reduced the price, and we changed the length of time that you spent with Santa. We wanted to make it a little bit more personal. We felt that was reasonably well received. Obviously, we handed out over 2,500 Christmas presents. We were involved in 35,000 minutes of events, which is quite significant. 103 lengths of festoon, 240 Christmas trees on buildings across the city, and a 25-foot Christmas tree with over 150 lights on the Guildhall Square, which we managed to secure a sponsorship for £1,500. Next slide, please. Excellent, thank you. So what are we going to do for this year? What's the plan? So we have secured with the Showman's Guild a half-term fair, which will be taking place on the Guildhall Square. Nice. We haven't had a fair at half-term February before. We haven't traditionally done anything, so it's nice to try something new. They will be paying us for the privilege of having a fair here, which is lovely. So it's got more quid in the bank. We will be having a stage. Do you remember that in the bids and savings process, we agreed to fund and put a stage? We'll be doing that. That will be between March and April of this year. And we have already gone out to a number of local companies for sponsorship. And it has been a very popular ask. So again, we anticipate that we can generate some revenue from that stage. And we have already gone out to a number of partners in schools, bars, local businesses to ask if they would like to perform on that stage. So we're quite keen to get this done. We don't want it to fail. We've got 6 weeks to kind of make it work, and we're well into that. So I'm very happy with the work that the team have done that. We're looking to increase the offer for Christmas. I think it was relatively plain to see that we probably could have had a few more retail chalets last year. And we're already going out looking for more potential chalets this year. I think the layout was nice. I think the way the look was nice. I think the uniformity we had in the summer we were able to replicate, but we could have done a bit more. Having said that, we had 4 gift fairs in the Guildhall during that time and 4 festive markets. So in isolation, that wasn't the only thing that took place. We're looking to do an expansion of Christmas Begins. Now, we could do that in conjunction with one of these car-free days that we've been talking about. We're talking about that in its infancy. We're also talking about charter fare for that and Christmas in general. But what does an increase in that look like? Obviously, we're looking to forge closer relationships with some of the businesses so that we can take more advantage of sponsorship opportunities or sport partner opportunities. And what I mean by that is that generally we only have sponsorship at our marquee events, for want of a better word, our large events or our key events. Yet we had something like 18 events last year, 14 of which didn't have any sponsorship at all. That doesn't make any sense to me. So the opportunity should exist throughout the year, not just for the big stuff. We have a huge footfall on the square. Our events are well supported. So why aren't we offering those opportunities all year round? And that, again, just to answer your Councillor Hogging, will form part of that media pack and that rate card. But you could be at any of our events if you wish at either a premium or optimal or standard rate. And that's how it'll work. Flyers offering discounts at businesses for visitors. I think one of the lessons we learned last year is that perhaps we need to be a better neighbour. Stop putting toilets in front of people's shops and, stalls across the road from where people are. And I think if we give a bit, I think we can probably ask a little bit from them. So the plan is that in conjunction with some of the local businesses, and this is a conversation with the bid and some businesses directly, does it hurt us to give somebody or a restaurant to give somebody a little bit of discount if they come and visit us at Fair on the Square? It's all good for the nighttime economy, right? It's all good for families. Doesn't hurt. So we're starting to have those conversations. We're going to ask for more feedback. It's really important that we don't know, we don't know what's best. We think we know what's best, and we're professionals and we know how to host events, and we've got some experience. But ultimately, what do we do next is set by the people who enjoyed and visited it the last time. And you're only as good as your last event. So asking the people who visited events what they thought of them seems to make sense. So we'll be doing more of that. We're looking to open a new concession at River Park in June. It's been an empty shell for some time, but now that the park has had all the alterations done, it is time to open that up. I've already engaged the market and have had a couple of bites, pardon the pun, a couple of bites from a few operators who would be interested in taking that on. And that would be a rent plus utilities deal, which is something that we haven't necessarily done before. So it should cover most of our costs, if not all of our costs. They would also have the fit out costs as well. We just supply them with the shell. And we're going to be doing some more training for our team. They need a bit of first aid training, the events assistants. They need to be a bit more, have a bit more confidence when they're at events if things happen to people. And we're going to do the IOS training for the events officers and the BTSOs so that they feel that they've got more, competence to host events. Any questions about events?
Yeah, Councillor Hocking.
Can you just roll back a slide, Chair, please? So, Matt, going back to your highlights of the year, 35,160 minutes of event. Are we talking Christmas, or is that over the whole year?
Over the whole year.
Okay, because mental maths was 600 man hours, 12 hours a day is 50 days, and we didn't have 50 days at Christmas. So.
No, it was across the year.
Okay, it's all bundled in with stuff that happened almost at Christmas.
Yeah.
So I just wondered if it was that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's that one answered. Stage, yes, please. You might want to talk to ex-councillor Jo King. She did a ton of work on this beforehand, so she might have something she'd throw on the table there.
Yeah.
And I really got to get some very focal glasses.
We'll do a deal. They do 2 for 1.
do a 2 for 1. The only other thing is about Christmas trees on buildings. Lots of comments that I heard wandering around were they are looking so tired because they are so old.
Yeah.
So anything that could be done, possibly in conjunction with a bid to breathe some new life into that. When they first came out, they looked really good, but now they're looking pretty tired. But
yeah.
no. Okay,
Stuff
thank
gets
you.
tatty, doesn't it? I think didn't we get some more money in bids and savings for Christmas decks this year?
Yeah.
So we either go to the businesses directly or we spend a bit of that dough on that, I think.
Councillor Rideout.
It's great to see you're talking about being a good neighbour. What can we do differently with the music and making sure that kind of thing doesn't happen again this time? Is there a plan?
I wonder if you could elaborate on that.
Well, I understand. I had a great time in the Snow Globe, visited Father Christmas, then watched him perform on stage. It was quite fantastic. But then I understood the music had to stop at one point.
Yeah.
And so is there something that can be done to make sure that that doesn't happen?
So I think, and I don't say this in any longer, I think it's important not to panic. I think if you host live events, there's a chance you'll make some noise. And what this, I think, is relating to is a particular complaint that somebody made that lives just by Nando's. We received the initial complaint, we responded, we then had and Councillor Hocking and I have had a conversation about this subsequently. We have already tried to change some of the speaker levels. We put closers on doors to make sure that if somebody didn't close it, they closed, so we could keep the noise condensed. We have already received a noise mitigation plan for this year, written for the summer and for Christmas. And I will be talking to some of your councillor colleagues at Wiltshire to just try and understand what it is that they would like us to do. I think we have an obligation and a responsibility to provide experiences, and that will be very difficult to do if we are tied to having it as quiet as Nando's. There's an issue about classification. So are we a stadium? Are we a urban event, or are we an all user? Our current status, I believe, is all user, which puts us in the same category as a shop or a library. I'm working on that, and we're having the right conversations. But yeah, of course, we need to make sure that the music doesn't stop. That's why people go. But just to say, we had 8,000 visitors to that bar over Christmas. Yeah, yeah, 7,000 times may have been. Yeah,
12.
Yeah.
Right.
Councillor Brown.
I just had a question about this year, the lights. There were a lot of failures of lights outside my window, apart from all around. And I wondered, because don't we always use the same contractor? And I know we've got plans and we're getting a budget that we're going to spend a bit more and maybe change things up. But I just wondered, are they just the old stuff that's gone a bit faulty this year?
When you say failure in lights, you mean our lights that we put up, or the lights of the...
No, the lights we put up on the trees, for example.
All right, yeah.
I'll often look out my window and see one whole branch that was dark. And it,
Yeah,
and that
I mean,
was quite much more than other years.
Short answer is that they need some work. They need improving. They're a bit tatty. They're a bit old.
Yeah.
We did undertake some work this year to try and make sure that we had a bit better electrical resilience, proper labelling, better checks, that kind of stuff. Yeah. But we're not quite there yet.
Councillor Bevan.
Have we looked at doing something different at Christmas? Years ago, we had an ice rink. I was just wondering if it's something we can look at, because, we seem to be catering for the grotto, and really good uptake for that.
Yeah.
We're looking at the adults for the bar. Something different for the younger ones, for the ice rinks and stuff. I think it's something that the times it's been here, it's always seemed to be well followed, but
yeah,
just something different.
I mean, the truth is that you can always look at something different. I think there is I guess as the head of business, there's a reality to how much does an ice rink cost, and it costs an exorbitant amount of money. It doesn't make any money for the council. It didn't when they did it. I think it was about 5 years ago. I think the last time they did it, maybe 6 years ago. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. What that means is that councillors need to understand that if they want it, it's going to cost. Because we're happy to deliver what we feel people would want, which is why feedback and stuff's very important. So the short answer is that, well, nothing's really off the table. But these things have real costs and real impacts on bottom lines and expenditures and what we ask people to pay.
And do we make money on the chalets?
Yeah.
We do?
Yep. We own them.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just felt, every time I walked through the chalets, it was very quiet.
Well, they pay us to be there.
Mm.
So yeah, we do. You know, it's not a fortune, but we don't lose money on the chalets.
It just feels if we get more people on the square,
Oh, 100%.
it just feels that if we're using, you know,
Yeah,
people
100%.
coming and use those sort of things.
Yeah.
It'll just bring more people into the city.
No, I don't
to use other
disagree.
things.
I think there's just a conversation to be had about if we want to do these things, this is how much they cost.
I think it's something we should look at.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I think just building on Matt's point, it's about appetite of risk for this. We don't have the footfall of Southampton, of Winchester, of Bournemouth. We have about 25%, I think it is, of Winchester. And the costs for putting these, you know, A-class facilities on are huge. And we just aren't going to make our money back. Now, the direction of travel of this council is things need to wash their own face. We need to make sure that whatever we're spending is good value for the taxpayer. It's in our financial regulations, 5.1. Steve would be very pleased with me quoting that. So we do just have to be aware, you know, that's why we struggle to get things like a Ferris wheel, because there's no way of us being able to cover the cost unless the prices to use it was something like £10 a person. So we would dearly love to have an ice rink here. I think it would be fantastic. My own kids would love it. But we're going to lose a good couple of £1,000 in order to make that happen.
Thanks, everybody. I just wanted to ask a question about some of those figures, because isn't Winchester about the same size population as Salisbury? It doesn't ever seem bigger.
No, I think it wasn't 25, to be fair, Chief Exec. I think Southampton is about 7 times bigger than Salisbury. Winchester is somewhere in the region of about, I think, 80%.
I think I did some homework on Winchester because I was curious myself, so I'll add. I think the reality is as well, Winchester's Christmas fair is not run by its council. It is run by a business set up by the cathedral that has many years' experience, and it has got there over a long period of time as a business that delivers that. Again, I think it's that question of direction of travel. We could get there, let's knuckle down for 20 years, but as a council, are we more about here today, let's do the things that we know we can do, or that's a bigger question?
Can I come to finishing what I was going to say, Mr. Chair? Because on that note, that was what was occurring to me, because there are models. I mean, like we've done with the bar, etc. If we outsourced it and someone other than us wants to take the risk, and they see that they can do the effective marketing and attract sufficient footfall to wash its socks, then we shouldn't stand in the way, should we?
I mean,
and I would go further as to could I propose a motion that we examine some business models, some other alternatives than us paying for it, and have a little look and consider that at next meeting?
I mean, I am glad that there, at least from your side of the room, Councillor, that there might be a change in thinking. I'll take you back. One of the biggest noises that I had this year was the bar not going to somebody from Salisbury. And I think I just want to balance that against, of course, we could look. If you look at Southampton, I think one of our biggest challenges here is the amount of real estate we have to do this. So regardless of whether we outsource it to somebody who's going to give us £1 gazillion or whether we do it ourselves, we've only got so many areas in which it can take place. So it may not be attractive. And you're right, we could look at that. But it may not be attractive to a company who are bigger and more capable, simply because they won't be able to generate the income that they need for the investment that they'll need to make. Perhaps there's a conversation to be had about what areas and where could we have extra Christmas elements that may be attractive for other people to look at. But that's a conversation with our colleagues at Wiltshire. That's a conversation with us. That's a conversation with the bid. That's a conversation about parks and open spaces. That's a wider conversation. But I think in short, absolutely, you can always say, well, if we give it to somebody else, you know, maybe they could do a better job or do more. And I'll use Southampton as another example. They didn't lose any market space over Christmas. They had the back of the walls where they had an ice rink. They had one of these massive Ferris wheels on the square. They had the Guildhall square open. They had loads of chalets down the middle of the high street. So nothing was compromised. I think that would be hard for us to do because of our association with the charter market, et cetera, et cetera. And I think Councillor Suddards is very kindly going to look at the charter for us in a little bit more depth and see if there's some flexibility. But yeah, of course we can look at how we could do it differently.
Councillor Rideout.
I think we have to be careful about comparing ourselves with other places, particularly Winchester, and as you say, our local community. Having friends in Winchester, we never go and see them around Christmas time. They come to see us because they can't bear being in their own space, because they consider it to be hideous at Christmas, because all it's about is thousands of people who don't live there going there, making a mess, and it being an unpleasant experience for them. So we do have to be mindful of that. On a positive note, can I just say thank you very much for keeping the beautiful, and I do like a soft white Christmas light, up in the dark days of January and February. It's very much appreciated, not just by me, but lots of Salisbury residents. So thank you.
Perfect. Does anyone want to second? There was a motion. I'm not going to second it. My comment would be, I think for this year, no, we've got some good ideas, and let's come back in a year's time and see whether Christmas has got better. We've got more funding, we've got a new trail, we've got a switch on event. I think maybe at the moment, let's see how that lands rather than starting to look at new models entirely. My suggestion. But, oh, yeah, Councillor Hopper.
And I think, Mac, I think the conversation that you want to have is already sort of happening. So I would suggest if the two of you got together and had a chat about what you think, I think that would achieve the same thing. So.
Yeah,
I'll be happy to do that.
No, but go and have the conversation. My final thought on this one, I've been waiting, is, I don't want to say very quickly sweat the assets, as it were, but the grotto, could we have got any more kids in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Was that a capacity issue, or next year can we get it up to 7,000, 10,000 happy children?
Santa got tired. I think we, yeah, of course we could see more.
I mean, say, I know we're going out, and spoiler warning to parents, send your children away. I know there are places where they have maybe more than one Santa. I don't know how they do it, but potentially, you could double capacity.
I'm sure there's a legal issue.
Yes.
Apologies, Chair. I just wanted to say there was a conscious decision. Now, whether or not we should have brought that back to committee or not, there was a conscious decision by Matt to increase the quality of the experience with Santa. Last year, 2024, there was about 20 or 30 people in with Santa. Come, sit down. I'm going to read you all a story and then take your gift and go. This year, it was one family with dedicated time. So there were much less people that went through. But I would argue that the experience that each one of those children and young adults had was much greater. But we could go back to the scenario of actually we'll get 40 through in a go, and every 20 minutes we'll do another 40, we'll do another 40. The view was that maybe it was something let's do something a bit special, a bit different this time.
Sorry, just to say, we saw more people in the grotto this year than we did last year. We did see more. It was only 40, but we saw more. Yeah, could we do more sittings? Yeah, maybe. Could we get another Santa in? Yeah, why don't we have a chat about it? I'm trying to lock this Santa down for the next 2 years, trying to get him into a multi-year deal, because he was a cracking Santa.
And cheaper.
And £20 an hour cheaper than the one we had the year before.
And I say, I only raise it on the other side of somebody who usually by about August is having to chase to find Santa experiences and things. They are very much in demand across
Yep.
the whole of the country. So again, it's almost that provision as a council. If we can provide a quality experience, then the more we can do it, the
Sure.
better. But yes, without compromise.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we move on to the Guildhall. Let me go back to my other slide. Okay. So some numbers for 2025. Over 200 paid bookings, over 50 civic and internal bookings, probably unpaid, most of those. That's fine. Our biggest booking, Psychology of Vision Week retreat, 3rd of October, just over £9,000. Our average value booking, that's net. I wanted to make sure that was right. So after the costs have come out, £600. Our busiest month was November and December. That was a tie. Our bar, you will recall that we trialled a bar last year to see if it was it made sense to make that investment into a bar. Made us around £3,500 last year after stock. So we were quite pleased with that. Our ticketed events sold 375 tickets. That was over 3 events. That was some comedy nights and a few talks with a couple of seed talks and some book launches and things like that. Next slide, please, Asa. So you'll see an image there of what our bar will look like. So following the trial last year and the money committed through bids and savings, we are happy to report that that bar is currently being built, and that is what it will look like, and that is where it will live in the foyer. Now, it will not be open for walk-ins. We've already spoken about this. But it will be there as a more permanent fixture in place of some of those tables. So it could have tea and coffee on it. It could have, it's fully branded, Guildhall branding again. It just raises the levels, I think, of the foyer area. You would have already noticed the digital screen that's in place, which we will be using to welcome people when they're coming in. We'll have advertising on it. We'll have things for people to go onto our website, various other stuff. So we're just trying to elevate that space a little bit more. We should hope to have that by the 1st of April. And that small bar at the back as well, that lit element will be there. Now we can move it. It is on casters, so it's not going to be bolted to the floor. But and we've found storage space for it. So, but I just wanted to give you an impression of that. We'll be looking to refurbish the banqueting hall in Q4 of 2027. Finally, the roof here will be done. It will get a lick of paint. And the reason for that is we want to attract high net worth individuals because it needs it. It's been neglected for a long time. And we talk about sweating the asset, then what better asset than this? And if we can just raise those levels a little bit more again, then we can go out to people who are prepared to pay a little bit more to be here. This part about the full financial reporting dashboard, I will cover in the exempt item. Any questions on the Guildhall?
Oh, yeah, Councillor Hocking.
Thank you, Chair. A point, then a question. So going back to the bar in the foyer, a few years ago now, pre-COVID, I've probably said this to a few before, myself and the wife jumped in the car on a Friday because we were bored, and we ended up in Teverton in Devon. And we wandered down into Teverton and had a walkabout. And in Teverton, they've got a town hall. They're sort of Guildhall. And in there was a bar, and I had a chat with one of the staff in there, and I said, what's all this about then? Because we've got a Guildhall in Salisbury, which we're always looking to do more stuff with. And she said, yeah, we're open to the public. I think she said Fridays and Saturdays. And she said it raised enough money to keep the building, to carry out all the uptake and stuff on the building. They said it was absolute goldmine for them. So if we wanted to run a trial or two when we were open to the public on St. George's Day maybe, or I don't know, the ex-mayor's birthday on the 27th of July, perhaps we could try. I know there are licensing implications and all the rest, but maybe just one of these things where we could try it and see what happens, might be useful. And the question really around the Guildhall generally, is there sort of a business plan for the Guildhall, a 5-year, 3-year, 5-year plan that says, this is where we are, this is what we want to do, this is where we want it to be?
I'll answer that in the exempt item, councillor.
Any comment on the general public opening of the bar? I think was the first. I saw those as two different things. I think it's a,
I'd been and seen somewhere where they'd done that very similar sort of thing. And they said it worked for them financially really, really well. So if we wanted to consider that, I'd be up for it.
Okay. It is. I mean, I don't know too much about the other place that you mentioned, and I don't know what the proximity of other bars are in relation to that venue. I think we may, and this stuff keeps me awake. We may come into some slack if we operate a bar 100 yards away from another bar, bearing in mind we also have a bar at Christmas and we also have a bar during the summer. But having said that, you're quite right, councillor. Would it hurt to say you can get yourself a beer on St George's Day? Maybe not, but I think it's a conversation for sure. But I think part of my job is to try and consider all eventualities and all outcomes to help me in my decision making, I guess.
have a beer inside and then an ice cream outside. The possibilities.
We're not buying a van.
Any other questions? Nope.
Info centre. Nearly 32,000 people came into the information centre last year. It's quite a significant number. £212,000 worth of income. Well, I wouldn't call it income, I'd call it sales. That included some retail items. That would be anything from a fridge magnet to a football shirt. Invoice payments, allotments, some of our services, things like that. And ticket sales, we sell Stonehenge tours and city tours and various other tours, and we get commissions and income from that activity. 785 guided walk tickets sold, nearly 950 Stonehenge tour bus tickets sold, and 335 studio tickets sold. I think what that tells me is that the information centre still has a relevance and a place in Salisbury. They're significant numbers. We saw people from 27 different nations, and they were only the ones that signed the book. And we had information stands to just raise our profile at St George's Day, Armed Forces Day, and our Miller events last year. So it's very important that we keep the information centre in the public eye, not only for locals, but for visitors. There's something quite cute about an information centre. There's something that people enjoy in a city like Salisbury, having an information centre, when so many have fallen by the wayside and don't exist anymore. So from a business perspective, I think it's a great asset for the council. Looking ahead, we've got a new member of the team, Maggie, who joined us in January, ex-teacher. She's settled in really well and enjoying the job, which is fantastic. We are looking at introducing paid advertising upon the information centre TV. Now that might take a little bit of software, and it won't be buy stuff. It won't be like that. It will be passive. It will be as part of that visual package that's on the TV. You're seeing the eagle fly from the cathedral, and then you're seeing something about an event, and then it might say double glazing, right? But it won't, it will just be a way to use an existing asset by sweating it, by having a little bit of content on there that we just get a little bit of passive revenue just because we've got the TV on. Right? We're going to explore what we call donation stations. So it's a modern version of a tin. So we introduced these in some of the other venues that I've worked in before, where it's a freestanding pillar, effectively. It's like got a square platform on it or something like that. It will say a little bit about Mayor's Charity, should that be a choice. There may be a number of options that you can choose that you may want to donate to. You'll get out your card, you're a visitor from Sweden or whatever, and you'll go, oh, excellent, there's a couple of quid. And I think, again, it's quite a nice way of generating some passive revenue, either from, as I say, Mayor's Charity, for example, might be quite a nice starting point. If we ever had anything that we wish to raise an income from, if we ever had an appeal or we wanted to fund something. Now, I haven't put the poultry costs on there to start a conversation. I've just put it on there as an example. In that, if there was something that we were looking to raise some cash for, they're quite a nice way of getting some money just by people walking into the building. We're going to do 3 one-off walking tours with 3 new themes with the city guys this year. Themes to be agreed, but we're already penciled in for those dates as part of the English Tourism Week. So that's great. And you would have seen the benches outside of Shop Mob are all nice and all fixed and all lovely. So people can now sit down and enjoy their chips, fight with a seagull on a bench that's not going to collapse underneath them. So that's nice. And again, I know I make a joke about it, but it's little touches like that that make a difference. Any questions on Info Centre?
Councillor Rideout?
It's just a comment, really. Like you're saying, it's quite cute, but I'm really glad you raised the point about it being for local people as well. It feels like the information centre is quite a connection between the council and the local community. Things like the teddy bear tours that we do around the city, where we're all the parents and grandparents are charging around swapping where every teddy bear is. But you go into the information centre for that and you drop off your form and all the rest of it. And that connects the local people with the council, which is really important.
Yeah.
Just as I say, I might be throwing us into a right tangent here, but I'm going to abuse my power. Advertising. It's come up a few times this evening now, and I think a couple of meetings ago when we had the digital screen guys here, it was up there.
Yeah.
And I've heard echoes of British tobacco and alcohol suggestions, and I'm not quite sure where that came from. And maybe not to you, Matt, maybe to the person to my right. Would it be this committee, where could I take or push for Salisbury City Council to potentially create an advertising policy so that we can agree as a group what we are happy to have as advertisers and maybe not? Because I think there's a sort of that we're going to be pushing advertising, and there may be a line to draw of actually as a council, if you get a request for advertising from this company, no thank you. Sure. But from these people, yes please.
Chair, happy to answer that. We know full well British American Tobacco, alcohol companies, arms dealers are exceptionally good at advertising and have deep pockets. However, Matt alluded to earlier his role in other public sector organisations where he's implemented in advertising guidance. So again, what we would do is we could bring the guidance back to a committee to say, there's not going to be anything particularly controversial on there. It will say, these are the types of companies that we will deal with, and these are the types that we won't deal with. And if there is anything that's, needs appropriate discussion, that you can do that in liaison with the chair and the chief executive, should there be any, difficulties. But yes, this is quite normal for us.
Oh, no, and I think that was the process I was thinking of, not that we do it case by case, but yes, if potentially then in a future meeting we could have that brought to us, that we could then sort of agree broadly based on, other examples, that would be brilliant. Thank you.
Could I please add to that, Mr. Chair? That I think that's absolutely right. And at the same time, we would include in that living document our choice of social media channels, because all the same criteria, and adding to that, it has to be dynamic, because, one company, BAT, might be terrible today because they're selling fags to kids, and then tomorrow they're not doing it anymore. And, and the same way, McDonald's once wasn't frowned upon, or Burger King, and in fast food, now it's becoming increasingly illegal to market that stuff to kids.
I'd separate out the social media. We can discuss that, I think, on the advertising. I think the broad types, and yes, it's living because everything is, because the next meeting we could change our mind. So I think, broad types, let's just put it down in paper, because I always like in life generally at home and that, stick it on paper and we can comment on it. Whilst we haven't got it on paper, anything could happen. So that's my... Councillor Hocking. Which, as I say, and who knows where my pension is invested as well. I think you do. That's, well, yeah, and maybe there'll be, yeah, sort of, we'll all have to declare more things, of course, at certain points. But yeah, I think if I could just, yeah, put a request in that we get an advertising sort of policy put forward, that'd be great. Thank you. Social media, though, I'll try and... What's the feeling in the room? Do we want similar on social media? Maybe at this point, just to say, we'll do any social media, and then if anyone's got a problem with that, bring it forward.
Just allowed to respond. I think it's actually the same sets of criteria. When you're engaging with a company, either to sell something or communicate with the public, or to sell, to, you know, we're selling space for someone to advertise with us, it's the same moral, legal questions, whether they're social media or they're someone selling fast food who wants to buy advertising space. I don't think you need to separate them. Generally,
I think purely on a simplicity in that advertising will specify types of companies and products that we want to advertise with. The social media one, the way I see it, is the other way of, do we do X, do we do Blue Sky, do we do TikTok? That was one earlier. So I think it's the same principle, but they are two different lists.
Yeah, I think the criteria to judge who goes on the list are identical, I would say. And they are, you know, are these harmful or not harmful? And that's really the only question. But
that's a question that we as the councillors would decide at any moment. I think we need a defined list.
I think if I may, for me, there is a difference between normal media and social media. I think normal media, to a certain extent, will already have an underpinning set of principles. Social media, by its very nature, will show and have content from a number of posters that we may not in principle agree with. So I think it could be tricky to try and make those two things one thing. But I take the point in that, you know, if we want to have a conversation about ethics and morality and stuff like that, then that's probably about personal view. If there's a set of principles that underpin the type of stuff we want to flog you as a member of the public or a visitor, that might be something slightly different. But I'm happy to have a conversation about either.
Councillor, to the Vice Chair, could I ask if there's a particular concern that you have? At the moment, we are on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we are on X, we are on, we're hoping to launch on TikTok. Is there a particular concern that's driving any one of those social media platforms, notwithstanding the points that Councillor Rideout has made?
I'd love to articulate the concern is because in the media every day, one company or other is getting a huge amount of negative attention. So I'm not saying any is bad or worse or anything else, but I think we leave ourselves exposed if we don't write down these are the sorts of principles that a company we will work with, social media outlet that we will use, behaves like this and doesn't behave like that. And that will change. And I come back to my point, it's exactly the same. We came, about a year ago, we were talking about billboards in the park, and we can't have this advert. As long as somebody said, as long as it's not fast food, you know, then we can. So it's the same set of criteria.
But it's, I think, and my clarification with what Matt was saying earlier is, it's got to become tangible.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're asking for on the social media feels more like an ethical, moral discussion, which is important. But it's not, though, is it? Because we can say we don't want it to be hurtful, and one person's hurtful is another person's not hurtful.
But
what we can say is yes to X, yes to TikTok, and then next week we could vote again and say, actually, this has happened in the news, no to TikTok.
But just as with safeguarding, as with so many things, we agree as a council, or Sven's working group that he wants, we have a set of criteria And then you don't need to keep revisiting it. And companies can fall in and out of that criteria every given Tuesday.
I don't think we could give clear enough criteria for the officers to make the decision without coming back to us anyway. So I think ultimately we just let them keep coming back to us if we need to update the list. Sorry, Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, Chair, Dane, we're sort of stepping into unknown territory here because it's getting very subjective. Yeah, what someone might consider acceptable, someone else doesn't. And we can't have, well, we're going to have this because I agree with it, but I'm not having that because I don't agree with your particular stance on something. So
Like
I sort of get what Matt is saying about having criteria, but you've got to make them broad enough not to be able to be abused is the wrong word, but used in different ways by whoever happens to be wanting to use them at the time.
And I think that's
for me, I would just let this roll for a bit and see what happens. Yeah, if we get something that comes up that slips under the radar, I mean, most of us around the room are pretty normal people, aren't we? If we saw something, we go, do you know what? I don't like that. I suspect most of the other people in the room would also say, do you know what? I don't like that. Yeah. So I would let it run at the moment and just see how it plays out, and let Matt get on with the business of doing what he needs to do. And then as we get closer to the time, we maybe have another conversation, but at the moment, I would just let it play out and see what happens. And to have that discussion, to decide to do things around the table this evening, I think is, we haven't had enough time to consider the ramifications of what we might be thinking of doing. So probably a conversation to take outside of this meeting, I would think.
Thank you. Are you happy to move on to the shop mobility slide? So some facts and figures from ShopMob. 2,851 daily hires of scooters, power chairs, wheelchairs and shop walkers. Nearly 1,800 long-term equipment hire days, 567 members. 150 of them are relatively active every 1 or 2 weeks. Others use the service, but less frequently. 9 shop mobility market stalls with the support of shop mobility volunteers. And that again would have been at our events, Mellors, and various other things, market squares. 3 scooter scoots, River Park Art, Secret Spots, Salisbury, Undiscovered Salisbury. Shop mobility mended after a car crashed into it in February of last year. No one was hurt in that accident. And the carol singing in conjunction with the Friends of Salisbury and Shop Mobility raised about £1,000. So that was nice. You can go to the next slide, basically. Thank you. I had to check. So looking ahead, we want to increase membership. Well, how do we do that? I guess just by raising awareness of the service. Maybe getting involved more in events, talking to people where we have events like Silver Salisbury, stuff like that, reaching out to hospitals, places like this, talking to people that, people like Southwest Trains who may have a particular demographic or a particular audience, doing things again at our events, making sure that we've got the gazebos up that say, do you want to become a member of Shop Mobility, this kind of stuff. We've got 9 market stalls planned for this year again. It's probably about all we can do, probably be the similar ones to last year. Increasing volunteer numbers is an easy thing to say, but not an easy thing to do. We have already had a meeting with Friends of Salisbury to discuss their ageing administrative support and their desire to hand over or pass on the great work that they do to the next generation of people. We're talking about what a campaign to do that might look like. And we're still working through that at the moment. We have a plan to sell aging equipment, which is no longer, serviceable or available, and asking the Friends of Shop Mobility to purchase 4 or 6 new scooters, power chairs or wheelchairs with the money raised. I think last year in total they raised somewhere in the region of about 10 grand. So they do great work, Friends of Salisbury. And we've got another 3 scooter scoots planned for 2026. The first one will be visiting Salisbury Museum on the 14th of May. Just to come back to your point, Councillor Ridout, about how people feel about Shop Mobility and the information centre. there are many people who will just pop into Shop Mobility for a chat. Bit of company, something to do. Doesn't happen so much in the information centre because it's a busier space. But I think it's really important to have these places where people can feel that they can go and just relax, chill out and stuff. I mean, as a service, does it make huge amounts of cash? Absolutely not. As a community asset, if you like, does it have a relevance and is it worthwhile? Absolutely. So, it plays a different part in the business portfolio than some of the other stuff, but no less relevant and no less worthwhile, in my view.
I think to build on what Matt's saying, this should be considered in exactly the same way that the pantry is. This is not something that is ever going to make money. This is not something that is ever going to break even. We can talk about models. We can talk about loan working. It would be a real challenge to staff the whole thing with volunteers. So when we think about difficult discussions around the pantry, Shop Mobility has to be in that mix as well. But what I've picked up is there's a very different perception between the two. Actually, they're both delivering public good. They're both consuming lots of taxpayers' money. And so if this is something that we support, then it's something that you as councillors support and accept the financial challenges, obviously, still value for money. But it's in exactly the same breath as the pantry for me. Is this something which you want to support with hard-earned taxpayers' money?
Councillor Hocking.
Okay, don't laugh, but I think you can monetize Shop Mobility. I think we should have a Salisbury Shop Mobility race. Yeah, so I think you could have like an agility track where you could sort of park and reverse and do stuff. You can have drag racing from sort of point A to point B, side by side, 2 at a time, all the way down through semi-finals, finals. You could even have an endurance race, and you could have your little gazebos all set up as your pits and all the rest of it, so they come in, change batteries, and off they go again. On the face of it, it sounds really silly, but on social media, that would just explode. Everybody would watch that because no one's done it before. Who was here when we had the OVO cycle race through the city? Yeah, it was insane, wasn't it? Now, we probably wouldn't get that much public participation to start with, but on social media channels, it would be a massive hit. Mark my words, we should try it.
Just to clarify, I think the opening sentence of commercialise or make it maybe is a bit overkill, but I'm not totally against the idea of potentially a one-off publicity event. I think is more what you were describing.
And you could have like the professional people who actually would race these things, and you could have like an open class, so people who actually use them anyway could have a go as well.
I just have
and you can
visions
sell
of
sponsorship
Jackie
and all
Stewart in
sorts
a
of stuff.
mobility scooter doing a donut in Culver Street car park.
Something for the media team. I think that is a.
Are you happy to move on to markets? So just again, a few highlights relating to the markets. We appointed our new market officer this year. I won't elaborate on that too much, but that's Dave Brown from Boyd & Mann. He'd worked on the market from 6 years old to 40 odd years old. We believe that it's Dave's chance to finally get to do the thing that he's wanted to do all his life, so that's nice. We rebased some of our prices for our larger pitch traders, namely fruit and veg. That yielded about 8k additional income for the markets, which was great, paying them for the size of the pitch that they had rather than the size of the pitch that they thought they had. The Christus vendors markets exceeded 50 and the feedback was very positive. We had a new layout this year. That was to encourage visitors to walk through in a supermarket style. So we set it out in aisles rather than back to back. So people went through this way. And again, it gave an opportunity to some traders who perhaps didn't get people walk past their stall, did this year. So just gave people a little bit more to look at. We obviously introduced the car payments for this year, last year rather, with Square. We We've introduced new traders, gluten-free products, baked goods, 3D printing, Korean, and we'll continue to look at new avenues for new traders whilst trying to balance tradition, overkill, and saturation. We rewrote the charter market regulations to bring them up to modernise them and make sure that it included things like credit card payments, non-payment. They, for the first time, certainly in anecdotal history, we now have signed regular trader agreements from all of our current traders and casual traders. So there is now a set of rules by which they have to adhere. So that's great. And finally, we now have a waiting list for things like fruit and veg, butchers, coffee vans, and baked goods. So it's nice to have a waiting list. I often get challenged with, why don't you just have more traders? Our Salisbury market is a very successful market. It's very busy. I would like to have more traders, but I'd like to have them in areas where perhaps we don't already have 3 or 4. So part of the market strategy is to grow that new vendor base, but also make sure you've got enough in your back pocket to be able to switch and transfer between traders when they naturally leave or decide to go. So that's a strategy. The next slide, Ace, please. So looking ahead to next year, we've introduced a new charter market for Charter Sunday this year. So on Sunday, the 8th of February, we're having a market in conjunction with Charter Sunday. Nice touch, couple of quid, supports the charter, fits in nicely with the narrative. Very good. We had a new markets assistant due to start in February, but unfortunately, they have decided not to take the job, so we have to go out again for advert. This job is proving difficult to recruit to, but we will continue to look at how we make the offer a little bit better, or we think of different ways to attract somebody into that role. We're bringing back street sellers, 4 themed markets, the arts in May, sports day in July, talent show in September, but the first one will be a dog show in March this year. So if you have a dog, bring your dog. It will be judged in a nice way. We will have various vendors selling dog-related products. We'll have shows, various other things. We're looking forward to it. We didn't do street sellers last year, so we thought we'd bring it back this year. We're looking to revamp the Tuesday market. We just feel that it got a little bit tired. Layout, maybe putting some traders in slightly different places to see if we can get people walking. It's funny, people generally, what we've noticed is that people will tend to go to similar traders because they're comfortable with them and they know, and they won't go past them. And that's not really what we want. I think what we want is for people to have as many opportunities to enjoy the market as possible and perhaps see things that they hadn't seen before and start to have new experiences, buy new products, get involved. So by having a look at the Tuesday market, because obviously it's less than the Saturday in terms of numbers, if it works, if some improvements in the layout work and we seem to get a better yield from people and we ask them how they feel about it, then we can always expand that to Saturdays. And we've spoken about the introduction of the trial of some car-free mega markets. I mean, there's not much more to say on that at this stage. There is a lot of work to be done with stakeholders across every part of this council and Wiltshire. Bus companies, retailers, bars, traffic management, health and safety, bus operators, to make sure that everybody, the bid, pillar, everybody, to make sure that everybody fully understands what it means to shut a street, 2 streets, or the surrounding streets of the city centre. Can we get enough traders? Do we get it at the right time of year? So there's lots of conversations to be had, but that's not to say that we're not working on it and trying to formulate a plan. I'm just not in a position yet to be able to give you finite details. And we are looking to move to cashless payments for all traders in the early part of this year. We think it's time. When I came here, it was all cash. It left cash collectors vulnerable. They were walking around with significant amounts of money in their pockets and in their bags. We moved over to Square, as I said. About 40% of the traders now pay cash. So it hasn't been that terrible. And if we can move towards either direct debit payments or cardless payments or whatever it might be, or online payments, whatever it is, but to move away from cash will really help us from an administrative perspective and an accounting perspective. So we'll be looking to do that this year. Any questions on markets?
Councillor Bevan?
Just around the car-free markets, which streets are we looking at shutting? Is it just Blue Wall or?
No, I think based on the conversation we had this afternoon, I think it probably makes more sense to maybe shut one street as a tester. What does that look like? How easy is that going to be to do? Probably Blue Ball is probably the answer. But then on the second one of these things, if we get the opportunity to do that, then maybe it's 2, and maybe it's 3. But probably start with one street and then.
Councillor Hocking?
Chair, thank you. Thanks, but yeah, interesting. Always good to sort of have a play around with the market. The Tuesday bit's interesting. My first thought about getting people to walk past every stall is there any way we can do a in one end and out the other, possibly?
Yeah.
Is that doable?
Yeah, I think so.
So that might work. The cashless bit, from recollection, when I was the mayor, there's only about one person that only takes cash on his stall. Everybody else almost will take electronic payment.
So it's how they pay us, not how
Yeah,
customers pay
but
them.
because they take electronic payments means that they can make electronic payments.
Sure.
So there is no reason for them not to be able to do that. So
Yeah.
rather than have the conversation, I'd have the conversation up to a point, and then I'd say from the 1st of April, it's going to be cashless.
Yeah,
would
I think
just-
that's fair. I
I
think
would
there'll be
just
a
go for that. 'cause
there
that's
will be
just
a
easy.
chat, and then there'll be look, it's happening from this point in the year. But I think we wanted to be kind about it, and we wanted to respect them.
Yeah, but we be kind to a point, and then there comes a point where we say, look, come on, guys. Yeah. And the only other thing, you say you've got a waiting list. Is there enough on the waiting list with, combine that to the other markets that we do? And I know there's space constraints and all the rest of it. Is there room for another market? Another market in a different place, in a different part of the city on, a Wednesday market somewhere else, maybe?
There might be. I think the charter restricts the amount of markets we can have in totality and also in distance. So I think it says something like we can't have another market within 3 miles. Don't quote me on the 3 miles. Yes, three festoons of a lark's chorus. But I think there are some restrictions, Councillor, on additional markets. But that doesn't mean, and we haven't, we have Sunday markets, we have street sellers, we have stuff like that. So these guys do come and present themselves at those markets. But I think if we call it something slightly different, we might be able to do it, not calling it a charter market, but
We called it something different from the market, then perhaps that's our get out of jail free.
Yeah.
All right.
But, any other questions? No? Perfect, thank you. Perfect. Any final questions on the team update then, as we close that one? Otherwise, let's move to Matt for the budget monitoring report. Thank you.
Sorry, that probably took a little bit longer than you were expecting, but it was good conversation. I was glad to be able to answer your questions. So I think this is normally introduced by someone else in terms of sort of the background information. So I want to get straight into the numbers, if I may answer. There are 3 explanations that I have to give you in returns of our variances. One being the Guildhall income. We have been using the same narrative for this for most of the financial year, and we'll continue to do so until the end. We had great performance in the Guildhall earlier on in the year, but what we're starting to see now is lesser performance in January, February, and March. Now, traditionally, that's just the way that the Guildhall performs. Having said that, we are looking to have more events and more things happening during that quiet time of the year. But what that's meant is that we have significant performance in that area of the business. Market salaries, I haven't been paying a markets assistant. That's why we have an underspend in the market salaries budget. When we have a markets assistant, we'll be looking to spend some of that cash, but there is an underspend in that element of the portfolio currently to the tune of markets. Excuse me. Sorry, what was that? 34,570. 34,570. Sorry, where's that? My apologies. 28,964. Yeah. And the third variance, which is around dilapidations, which we are just waiting for a bill. And when that bill comes through, we will pay that bill and that variance will fall off of our books. But that is more an environment bill rather than a markets and events bill. It's just where the budgets currently sit. I have no other variances to explain.
Thank you. Anything else? Otherwise, questions on this? So we may not have the right people in the room. I was looking at the asterisks and I didn't find the meaning of the asterisks, but not in this document. So this, of course, goes to the end of November. Is there anyone in the room? Just explains when I was looking at the profiled budget and the variance for the things that haven't actually happened at the point these figures were made, because these are in November and Christmas. Does that mean we should probably just ignore them and wait for the next one?
Yes. Steve will always talk. Steve will always talk tremendously about profiling. LOL has done a lot of work during November to make adjustments around this profiling. Exactly the point. There's no point in us showing budget spend for Christmas begins in May or June or July. So there has been a lot of that tidying up that we've talked about for a long time now. There were some very short conversations with SMT and with by heads of service to other colleagues. Let's get this right. So whilst there are, yes, some, particularly for events, less so for the other cost centres that you see on there, but for events, there is a lot of work that's gone in to make that a little bit better now going forward. But really fantastic performance.
No, very good. Perfect. No, that was it. Thank you. Any other questions, comments on this? Otherwise, do we have to do a vote that we note these, or do we're all noting them? Everyone happy to note these? Noted. Thank you. Perfect. At this stage then, are we ready to move to the exempt item? So switch off. I think the only members of the public are members of the public that can stay in because they're not members of the public because they're two councillors sat there.
Well, not councillors tonight, Chair. I'll just say.
What is the rule? Is it only members of the committee?